2 years ago, I made a decision that most people spend their entire lives avoiding or convincing themselves they could never make. I chose to walk away from my own parents. Not in a moment of anger, not after some explosive argument, and not because I suddenly stopped caring. In fact, it was the opposite. I cared so much for so long that it slowly started breaking me. And one day, without any dramatic scene, without shouting or tears in front of anyone, I just stopped. I chose silence. I chose distance. I chose myself. If you've grown up believing that family is everything, that no matter how bad things get, you stay, you tolerate, you forgive, then you already know how heavy a decision like this feels. It's not just a choice, it's a complete shift in how you see love, loyalty, and even yourself. Because when you walk away from strangers, people understand. But when you walk away from your own parents, people question you. They judge you. And sometimes, you start questioning yourself too. At the time, it didn't feel empowering. It didn't feel strong. It felt terrifying. Like stepping into a version of life where there's no roadmap, no reassurance, and no guarantee that you made the right call. I remember sitting alone thinking, what if I regret this? What if I'm the problem? What if I just gave up on the people I was supposed to love no matter what? But at the same time, there was another voice. Quieter, but stronger. A voice that said, you've tried long enough. You've given enough. And it's okay to choose peace, even if it costs you everything familiar. And today, 2 years later, I'm going to be completely honest with you about what happened after that moment. Not just the freedom people talk about online, but the loneliness, the guilt, the healing, and the truth that no one really prepares you for. Because cutting off toxic parents doesn't just change your relationships. It changes you. We grow up hearing the same message over and over again. Family is everything. That no matter what happens, no matter how much it hurts, you stay loyal. You forgive. You don't walk away. In many cultures, especially in places like Pakistan, this belief is even stronger. Respecting parents isn't just expected, it's unquestioned. And because of that, a lot of people never stop to ask a very important question. What if the people who are supposed to love and support you are the ones causing the deepest pain? Toxicity in families doesn't always look obvious. It's not always shouting or physical fights. Sometimes it's subtle, constant criticism that slowly destroys your confidence. It's being compared to others again and again until you feel like you're never enough. It's emotional manipulation, where your feelings are dismissed, your boundaries are ignored, and somehow, everything always becomes your fault. You start walking on eggshells, overthinking every word, trying to avoid conflict, but no matter what you do, it's never right. And the hardest part is, you don't even realize how much it's affecting you at first. You tell yourself, this is normal. Every family is like this. You minimize your own pain because you've been taught that speaking up is disrespectful. So instead of questioning the environment, you start questioning yourself. I spent years like that, trying to fix things, trying to be better, calmer, more understanding, hoping that one day things would change, hoping that if I just tried a little harder, I'd finally receive the love and approval I was chasing. But the truth is, when you're stuck in that cycle, you're not just trying to earn love, you're slowly losing yourself in the process. And eventually, it reaches a point where you're exhausted. Not physically, but emotionally. You feel drained, stuck, and confused. You know something is wrong, but you don't know what to do about it. Because walking away feels impossible, and staying feels unbearable. That's the place I found myself in, right before everything changed. I finally reached a point where the math just didn't add up anymore. I realized that staying, constantly trying to earn love that came with strings attached, was destroying my spirit more than leaving ever could. It wasn't a snap decision made in a moment of anger. It was a slow, painful realization that I was drowning while trying to keep people afloat who wouldn't even reach for a life vest. So I did it. I made the hardest, most gut-wrenching decision of my life. I cut them off. No contact. No checking in through relatives. No scrolling through their social media to see if they missed me. No looking back. I blocked the numbers, I filtered the emails, and I closed a door I had spent 20 years trying to keep propped open. And I wish I could sit here and tell you that as soon as I hit block, the the sun came out. I wish I could tell you that everything got better overnight and that I suddenly felt free and light. But that's the version people sell you for clicks. The truth? It didn't get better. Not at first. In fact, the silence that followed was louder and more terrifying than the screaming ever was. Closing that door didn't just keep the toxicity out, it left me standing all alone in a very dark, very quiet hallway, wondering if I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. The first few months weren't the freedom I had imagined. They were brutal. I thought I'd feel a sense of relief, but instead, the guilt hit me like a massive, relentless wave. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart skipped a beat, not out of hope, but out of fear. And then came the loneliness, a hollow kind of doubt that made me overthink every single conversation and every decision I'd ever made. I spent those nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, asking myself the same 3 questions on a loop. Did I overreact? Am I actually the bad person here? And what if I end up regretting this for the rest of my life? And that's the part nobody talks about on social media. They talk about cutting out the cancer, but they don't talk about the phantom limb pain that follows. Cutting off toxic parents doesn't just remove the pain, it also removes your sense of familiarity. You've spent your whole life navigating their chaos. It was your normal. When you take that away, you aren't just losing them, you're losing the only map you've ever had. You're forced to stand in the stillness, and for the first time, you have to face the person you are when you aren't busy trying to survive them. But then, after the storm of guilt began to settle, something started to change. It wasn't a loud explosion of joy. It happened slowly, quietly, in the small corners of my daily life. I began to feel something I hadn't realized was missing: peace. A moment of stillness. For the first time in my life, there was no more walking on eggshells. No more bracing myself for a phone call that would ruin my entire week. No more constant, buzzing anxiety in the back of my mind. The heavy lifting of trying to prove my worth to people who were committed to misunderstanding me, that was over. I finally put the bags down. And in that space where the chaos used to live, I started discovering who I actually am, without their voice and hissing in my head. I realized that my opinions weren't wrong, and my feelings weren't dramatic, they were just mine. I began to build boundaries that weren't made of fear, but of self-respect. I found healthier relationships, people who didn't require me to shrink so they could feel big. I learned, for the very first time, that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. It doesn't have to be earned through suffering. 2 years later, I'm not just surviving a toxic past, I am finally, truly, building a future that belongs entirely to me. If you're watching this and you're going through something similar, if you're currently in that dark hallway I mentioned earlier, here is what 2 years of silence has taught me. First, you are allowed to protect your peace, even from family. The word family is not a golden ticket that grants people the right to abuse or belittle you forever. Second, remember that guilt doesn't always mean you're doing something wrong. Sometimes, guilt is just the feeling of your old self trying to survive. It's not a sign of a mistake, it's a sign that you're finally healing. Third, distance doesn't mean you don't care. You can love someone from across an ocean of boundaries. It just means that you've finally decided to care about yourself, too. And most importantly, you are not responsible for fixing people who refuse to change. You are a human being, not a repair shop. Your life's purpose is not to be a sacrifice for someone else's unhealed trauma. Fire. 2 years later, my life isn't perfect. I still have bad days. I still have moments where a song or a smell reminds me of a memory that stings. But the difference is, this life is mine. I wake up in the morning without that heavy weight of fear in my chest. I make decisions about my career, my home, my time, without a committee of guilt controlling my every move. I don't have to check my phone with a sense of dread anymore. And for the first time in my entire life, I feel free. Not loud free or celebration free. Just quiet, steady, unshakable freedom. I finally know what it feels like to belong to myself. This story resonated with you. If you felt even a second of recognition while I was speaking, then I want to hear from you. We've been taught to keep these struggles in the dark, but there is so much power in bringing them into the light. Have you ever had to walk away from someone close, someone who was supposed to be your everything, just to protect your own peace? Whether it was 2 days ago or 10 years ago, drop your story in the comments. Read through the others too. I'll be down there hearting your responses because I want you to see, in real time, that you are absolutely not alone. And if you're looking for more real, unfiltered stories about reclaiming your life and choosing your own path, hit that subscribe button. This channel is a space where we talk about the things nobody else does, the hard truths, the silent victories, and the reality of starting over. If you're still feeling that heavy weight of doubt I mentioned earlier, you need to watch this video next. It breaks down exactly how to handle the guilt phase so you don't get pulled back into the fire. Thank you for trusting me with your time today. Protect your peace. I'll see you in the next one.